Hello? Can you hear me? That goes too far forward. We'll come off. Hello? Can you hear me? No? They can't hear me. Hello? Can you hear me now? Still not? No. Mike? Yeah. Yes. Now it's pretty loud. Yeah. Yeah. If see if I can get it. Have to stand up, I think, to put it in there. Otherwise, that's true. Haven't thought of that. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Hello? Yes, it works. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yes, I can hear the sort of reverberation of the voice. Okay. You tell me where to start. Yeah. Okay. Hello, ladies. I'm going to talk about improvisational strip piecing. Now, I assume you all know about strip piecing, just putting together lots of strips, but I use it quite a lot in a lot of my quilts. And when I mean improvisational, it means two different things. One is I don't plan it in advance, only have a vague idea of the structure, but also it means that I actually cut it with a ruler, with a cutter without a ruler. And it doesn't have to be curved or anything, you can just go like that. And it's what I call off the straight. And the reason why I like that is because it gives the whole quilt a more organic kind of look rather than, when I think of it very regimented. It also is because I can't get any corners to match or things like that, so I develop my own way of coping. So I'll show you a few things I've done with strips. You have something like this. And the maps I make, most of the houses and things like that, they're all made by joining together strips. It looks very complicated, but it actually is only strip piecing. And something like that, with the addition of a triangle, you can get quite interesting things. So I'm going to show you how I do some of these things. So to start with, when I have two pieces of fabric, I put them on the mat next to each other with the right sides up. That's very important. Because if I cut it that way, like you would with a ruler, I might end up, because it's not absolutely straight, you might end up with a slight mirror image and you won't be able to get it to lie flat. But if you put it like that and say, okay, just a little bit there I need to cut, and that should work. So then I put it in the machine. And it's just stitch a normal 1/4 inch seam. And I'm going to do another strip. I got a piece of fabric plus a strip already cut. So I'm going to put it on top of these. It doesn't matter if they're not exactly the same length. And I'm going to copy that line on the other one so they will work together. And as I said, they were both right sides up. Of course, you can't really tell at a distance because this is hand-dyed fabric, but you can't tell because it's got a shine on one side and not on the other because it's a sateen kind of fabric. But with commercial fabrics, you can have no problem telling which is right and which is wrong. So you make sure that the two edges stay together. So if there's a slight variation, you just want them to stay together. So you can see now they seem to go in different directions. So I just move it slightly. Okay. And now you're supposed to iron it, but we found it became very difficult to have an iron here. So I'm just going to finger pressing, and turn the seam allowance towards, one which is at least wider than the other, not too very thick to a thin one. Then you can do the same again. Decide which one you're going to put on which side. And I find these are actually pretty close, so I'm not going to bother to cut very tiny bit. The thing with fabric is it does stretch. A lot of traditional quilting, you have to press very carefully so it doesn't stretch. But with my method, you let it stretch as it likes, Okay, so here we have a strip of four strips together. Now, these ones are not ironed, which makes it more difficult to work, but I got a few which I've had from before. So the next thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to take some of these, and I'm aiming to make something of this kind, which you can use them for anything. It's just like forms like a texture. So I'm going to just cut a few pieces. They're different sizes and things. I'm going to cut another bit here. And I don't worry too much if actually one is longer than the other. I can, just add another piece, or I can cut it down to size. Nothing to worry about. So then you stitch it together, and you have something like this, which makes a texture. As this is quite obvious, I won't go anymore. Now, when I make the houses for the maps I make, I start exactly the same way with strips. I'm just going to cut this down so I can use it again. So now you can see one strip is very much narrower than the other, and that's important. The same with this. So what I do is I prepare a whole lot of them, and then I cut them in pieces, in sections. Not all of them. Trim the edge. And now you can play. You've got lots of different ones here, different colors. And what you want to do is just put them in different directions. I had one that I stitched before. Here you are. I'm just going to stitch some more so you can see how it works. And you can stitch in a row, you know, with one bit after the other. Now you need to trim them again so that you actually can stitch one to the other. But I don't worry about them being smaller or bigger. You know, you just add bits or cut bits out or whatever you like. So now I can stitch these two pieces together. Now you can trim the bits you don't want. And there you are. So you can see then eventually, you know, I make more pieces and I add bits of green in between and long strips here, and eventually you get a map. There's another bit here. Now you can do other things. For example, if you're making a map, you can get all these pieces and you can put them in a row. And you have a row of terrace houses. Right. Now I'm going to tell you how things like that are made. They're complete improvisationally. And in this case, I've used just two colors. So I will cut a few strips, some thicker, some thinner, some thicker. Now some in the other color. Not easier to cut when you're sitting down, but otherwise the camera can't see me. So you can arrange a variety of things. I'm not going to use all the full length of the strips. Just going to cut one bit here. In this case, I'm going to do some will be sets of 2 and some will be sets of 3. Now this is, I think, too wide. So I'm going to do that. Now I'm going to quickly stitch this. Shoot up the end. Trim it off. Now the middle one was in fact going to be a third. It was going to cover 3, so I'm just going to add this to it. Chewing it again. At home I have little bits of fabric I start with, but I haven't got them here. So if you look at that, if you look at a close-up of it, these are the things I made with the sort of the one with the thin strips on one of them, and they're always double, just 2, not a whole lot of them. And what I'm doing now is really what I've been doing there. So I sort of got strips of 3, and I got strips of 2 of different sizes. And there are lots of things you can do. So I'm just going to cut a few bits here. And if I turn the middle one round and stitch that together, you'll see this is what I've done here. And I don't try and match those seams, I just do it, separately, like that. So if I stitch this together, and what I'm looking for is kind of like secondary patterns emerging. So now we've got this. I'm going to put something else next to it. Doing it again. Yes, I haven't got an iron, so it's difficult. So, well, the problem is I have an iron with me, but having looked into the whole question of electricity, we decided there's a risk that it could blow up all the lights, and we couldn't risk that. Okay, so that's a section of it, and then what you do is just pick up other bits and see what happens. And you don't want to end up with a piece which is just, one color and another color, it's just immediate contrast. You want something which will make it appear, like, this goes that way, and so it looks more interesting. Probably won't put that there. That's the thing. You see, your first, your first reaction will be, okay, let's put, that was red, so this is that. But I would do the other way round. So you get a sort of shapes that come up. Or if you put it on the other side, that looks like it's going there, or turned around this way, and you've got a different pattern again. So that's what I'm looking for, something interesting that comes out of all these things. So we got a very interesting pattern coming up there and there. So basically you need to have a whole lot of these strips and 2s and 3s with different widths, different ways of doing it, like this one here, which is quite a thin line. And sometimes you can get triangles mixed up, and then you get quite interesting things. Now this quilt I made is for an exhibition which doesn't start until January in the States, and it's absolutely enormous, will sort of be that kind of length. And what I did, it's called The River of Life, and it's kind of stages of my life. So each one of these sections has a different way of strip piecing that I have used, previously in quilts. So this is got a lot of thin lines, and that was, sort of my childhood kind of thing. When I came to England, and that was middle of swing in London in the late 60s, so I put lots of very colorful strips. Then I got married and I had, sort of children, so you got this, it's done like strip piecing as well, but, some of them are quite big, so it looks like squares. And this one, which is to do with sort of what I was doing, crafts of various sorts, is all done with this same thing, but I did each section in a different combination of colors. So you can see, it looks so complex, but when you know how it's done, it seems much simpler. This was made just like I made the maps, with those strip piecing. That's, in fact, sort of more difficult times, and I put some dark colors and some lighter colors, and there was sort of gray, and then, sort of very colorful here with, you can see that shapes mix into each other, and they're done all with forms of strip piecing. So, and this river is fused on, that's fused on top of everything. So the whole quilt is all made of sections, and this is fused on top of everything. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and little boats. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay. Yeah, right. Oh, thank you. Well, you shouldn't worry about it. It's much better if you can't cut straight. Yeah, good. Alicia Merrett. Yeah. Okay, you're welcome.